Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller. Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Kid Chaos.
Ooh.
But before we get into Kid Chaos, let's talk about some news.
That's what you came up with?
That's what I came up. That was my new break into the news.
Wow.
Sounds remarkably like the old
It does,
break.
man. It does. So, not a ton of news, but a couple little tidbits we're going to go over. So, right out of the gate, we're going to talk about a new executable EXE game that's been released. The game is called Wean the Prophecy. Bo, what can you tell us about Wean the Prophecy?
Well, it looks like an adventure game that published by Sierra, which is surprising because I've never once heard of this game before.
You're not a big fan of the Wean?
I always, they've got that song, Push the Little Daisies and Make Them Come Up.
Nice.
I know the Lilies were a big fan of Wean.
Were they?
Yeah.
I've heard that.
But I remember seeing their album Chocolate and Cheese advertised in the Columbia ads in the magazine, like 25 albums for a penny.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I know about Wean.
That's a horrible name for an album.
Well, it's
Chocolate and Cheese.
Yeah, well, it was the 90s. It was a different time.
Yeah, it was a dumb time. Anyway, Wean, available right now. It's one of these, Windows, EXEs, all rolled
All
into
in one.
one gimmick. It's over at Games Nostalgia. And, of course, we thank Indie Richard News for a lot of the news we get, and that's where that one came from. Next little gimmick we've got is a little PD game that I came across this week. This isn't really current news, but hey, if you don't know about it, it's news to you. It's a game. If you'll recall, months ago, we covered a game, and I think I did a Amigos play on it called Popeye 2. Now, I know we're both fans of the original Popeye.
Oh, yeah.
Popeye 2 was not good.
It has nothing to do with the original Popeye.
And I will say Popeye 2 crushed the third Popeye in the series, which was Popeye Wrestling, which is just horrible. And I love wrestling and Popeye. No good.
It's a shame, really.
It is.
They could have done a lot with Popeye and wrestling. That seems like a match made in heaven.
It's a horrible
Have you
match.
downloaded Popeye for Fire Pro Wrestling yet? I'm sure they have a Popeye
I
character.
haven't looked, but that's a good idea. But so Popeye is apparently was released, I think it was 2014. It's a public domain game, which looks like it's either a port of a C64 version of Popeye or a straight up version of Popeye for the Amiga, but it looks good. I haven't got to play it yet, but I'm going to look into it. And I saw screenshots of it, and it looked great. So I'm hoping it's as good as it looks. But I love the arcade game, and I like to have Popeye on the Amiga. So, and also, it would work perfectly. The controls are there. It should look nice.
I wonder, it seems like Nintendo really missed an opportunity with some of these 16-bit consoles to put together some sort of a nostalgia pack, where they have Popeye, Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong.
It's easy to know why that won't ever happen.
Well, yeah, because they were making a competing platform.
No, it's not even that.
Well, it's mostly that.
It's licensing when it comes to Popeye, which is probably they've never used them again. King Feature Syndicate owns the rights of Popeye, and I will say it's funny. Nintendo had a real. They were really hungry for that Popeye license back in the day. I always thought that was weird because you're talking the early '80s, and I grew up watching some Popeye, but it's not like Popeye wasn't like the hip show.
Yeah.
But maybe in Japan, I guess Popeye's a world-known
maybe so
entity. I don't know. It's weird what cartoons are popular all over the world, what aren't.
It is weird. That's the question that I won Classic Gaming Jeopardy at the Classic Gaming Expo in 2003 in Vegas when I was there. What licensed cartoon character was produced by King Feature Syndicate? I rang in with Popeye, walked out of there with a Famiclone.
To be fair, there's a lot of characters, but he's the main one.
Well, they said what Nintendo character
Oh,
from
there you go. So anyway, we'll look into that, but Popeye, can't go wrong. This last little tidbit I've got, and it's not entirely Amiga related, although come to think of it, maybe it will be given a little while, but it's Commodore related. You'll recall a while back I took a C64 that had a bad motherboard. I gutted it, put a Raspberry Pi in it, and made something, with a key rod, interface the keyboard, and it was a thing. It was a
I never
thing.
once saw it. I don't really believe that it exists.
I've got it, and you can look at it at your leisure. But this is sort of the next step in the evolutionary scale of that kind of wackiness. And when I look at this, it makes me think, wow, this would be so much easier. But, of course, it'll cost you. So what this is a Fpga motherboard replacement for the C64. I just stumbled across this, just looking through some forums. And it's a quite a snazzy little gimmick. You can see if you're watching the video, it's a replacement for the motherboard, but it's very small. It just takes up the back section of the C64. It's got your joystick ports. It's got HDMI out. It's got slots for your classic hookups for the most part. I know it's got the tape on the back, but it's also got the cartridge slot, which is cool. I don't have that on mine, and it also has a card slot. It's got an FPGA on it, so you'll be able to pretty much simulate a C64. Pretty accurately, and it's even got a slot for the sound chip. If you don't want to trust the FPGA to do the sound for you, you can actually put the sound chip in there, the SID chip, and it will use that for sound. Now, word on the street is you can't really tell the difference because the FPGA does a real good job simulating the sound. But it's there. The cartridge slot, I think, is an interesting addition. That's really the most alluring thing to me is the cartridge slot. If you want to play your cartridges, and I suppose it'll work right out of the gate. I don't know.
Maybe you could go even further down the meta and plug a flash cart into the cart, so you've got a flash cart into an FPGA.
Oh man, you're really getting. Well, I mean,
it's Inception computer form.
It's got a. I think it's got a micro SD in it, but I suppose you could get like your quick load cart and stick it.
Oh yeah,
have it load. But it looks like a nice little item, and with an FPGA, it's the same old shtick. All right, you can get multiple cores. And
what's the MSRP for this thing going to be, or the RRP?
This isn't released yet, and they're not 100% sure what it's going to cost, but it looks like it's going to be north in U.S. dollars of about $270.
Expensive.
Excuse me. I thought about this quite a bit. When I thought, how much money do I have in what I've got? Okay, which is a Raspberry Pi 3 with a the card slot and a lot of extension cables I had to hook into it, and the key raw, and I figure I've got probably, and you also could consider the SD card, which I'll add into the total. I've probably got about 120, 130 bucks in it. All right. I put a lot of headache, pain, and agony in it too.
Yeah, not to mention 11 months out of your life that we're waiting for the key raw.
Because when I heard this price, I was like, poof, that's insanity. But how much is your time worth? Mm-hmm. It's something I used to hear, and I'd be like, who said that? What a jerk. But it's true.
It's very true.
I've wasted a lot of time screwing with this thing, and this thing it's going to be a much prettier solution and a much more capable solution in a lot of ways. So we'll see. But anyway, I thought it was kind of neat. If you're a 64 guy, you've got a couple jacked up C64s lying around the house, this would be a nice solution if you've got the money and you're really into the 64. Now, maybe, I don't know what exactly they've got, in terms of this, but maybe you can even do Amiga stuff on it someday. They can release a core. That'd be kind of neat. I mean, you've got the joystick ports that you need. You've got the SD card slot you need.
I mean, really, all this is it's using the keyboard of the C64, and that's about it.
That's right. And what would be interesting? Hey, we always talked about an Amiga with a cartridge slot. Mm-hmm. You just simulate the Amiga core on this. You got your cartridge slot.
Yeah.
Now you got to come up with cartridges for it.
You just got to get a. I'm trying to think. Maybe you could use what cartridge has. I guess any of the 16-bit cartridges, you get an EEPROM burner, and you'd have to have something big enough to put an Amiga game on.
What you could do is you get a cartridge and just put a card reader in the end of it.
That's the answer right there.
Well, you can. I don't know. Of course, it's already got a card reader, but if you want to be a real cool guy, you can put the card reader in there. So, but still, kind of neat. Might be fun. We'll see. It's not out yet. One last item I want to go over, and I know I've been pushing this, but I've been under the gun the last week, so I haven't got to do as much as I wanted, but I did use, once again, I used Cloanto's Amiga Forever to play this week's game. on, and it ran real well. It ran flawlessly. The reason I haven't released a review on this yet is because I really haven't got to do some of the more intricate stuff with it. I will say so far, I'm pretty impressed with what they've got going on. It's pretty easy to use. I will say the addition of the floppies, the way they've got the icons positioned, the way they've got it's quite. The interface is nice. I'll say that straight away. And I've used some of the other ones. They went out of their way to make this as easy to understand as an Amiga emulator can be. I can tell that just from looking at it and using swapping out discs and stuff. The Amiga is a complicated machine. At the lowest level, it's a complex machine, right? I mean, I don't mean all the different core stuff. I just mean, loading stuff up, memory management, swapping disks, all that jive. And this thing makes it pretty simple to do, and so far it's played the games perfectly without any glitches. I've never had any problems. It's detected every game I've tried so far, so it's got a pretty good database of instructions and stuff.
Maybe you can do an Amigos Plays review of that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about it on the show more completely, but I will say it's such a complex piece of software. I don't want to do a half job.
Sure.
But so far I've tried some hard drive files, some discs. I've tried some of the various little bells and whistles, and I've not had any trouble, any crashes, or any issues so far. So far, I'm giving it the high sign, and I'll let you know if I run into something bad. What do you got site-wise, Bo?
Well, we got a couple site updates this week. The first thing is we had some action over at Amigo Studios East.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't talk about that, did we?
No.
We dropped some games off in the Amigo Studio. In fact, we've got pretty much the majority of everything in there. We had to 2 sessions of moving. I can't remember. Had we moved anything last time we were on? I think we moved 3 pinball machines. We finished, in total, we moved 5 pinball machines, a video game, and a crane machine. I think that's all we moved so far.
Yeah.
And still to be put into the arcade, or is at least 1 more arcade machine, and possibly 2 more, if you can believe it. We got to see how we're going to fit it all in. But we did a half-assed job. And amazingly, we didn't destroy anything despite our own efforts.
And you can see just a small piece of that I recorded for posterity, the moving of a Firepower 2 pinball machine in our kind of unique style. And so check that out on YouTube. It's episode 3, I believe, of Amigos Arcade Adventures.
Given the parameters that we had to deal with in terms of the ability to have the truck in a certain position and the ability to use the equipment we had on hand, it couldn't have went any better.
I'd agree with that.
And also being too lazy to remove probably 30 pounds of stone from the crane machine or the prizes. We just moved everything just to screw it. We put it all in there. So probably don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amiga Studio East is coming along nicely, and hopefully within a month we will be able to push something out and do some content over there.
Start filming over there.
Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to it. The end is nigh.
That's scary. The end of the project or the end of the world? Okay.
That's right.
Let's take out some everythingamiga.com site updates.
Talk about this story.
All right. So first we've got something that I promised I would do, and I finally made good on it. This is a second look at Lionheart, and I don't know why when
it's
I
a bleak
loaded
look.
up like that. Yeah. You might just go to YouTube and search for it, because apparently I tagged it or I coded it wrong into the website. But basically, I spent a good amount of time, about 30 minutes, with Lionheart.
You went through it,
and check it out. And it is is it as bad as I thought it was before? No. Is it a great game? No. It still has a lot of shortcomings. The levels are still way too long. They're way too repetitive, but it does a lot of things well. And I didn't give it a fair shake the first time around.
Now, if I may retort. I watched Boat's video literally seconds after it came out. I about fell out of my chair. In fact, when I saw it drop, if you will. Boat is nicer to it this time. He doesn't drop to his knees, and thank God it was made, which that must happen. But I don't agree with everything you said about it. I haven't watched it, but I enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed watching you fail to fight bosses. That was amusing. I also enjoyed watching you cheat ad nauseum.
Oh yeah.
Early and often. The cheating was strong in this
rampant.
one. But I thought it was interesting. Now, you took a second look at something else this week, too, which I haven't watched this one yet. What was that?
I have no idea what you're talking
Didn't
about.
you take another look at another game? Okay, maybe I'm insane then.
But maybe next week I will. We have one more site update this week. We have a article from Dreamcatcher, and this is basically a roundup of all the sort of obscure and possibly poor Amiga Ninja games. So it's cool. If you're watching the YouTube video, you see the cover art for Ninja Rabbits. You can only imagine how great that game probably is. So like all of Dreamcatcher's stuff, it's all great. We might have something more to announce with related to Dreamcatcher and his articles coming up in a future episode. So watch out for that.
Now, you also looked at Fury of the Furies, right?
Oh yeah, but that was a first look.
Okay, but still, it's a look.
Yeah, I took a
What
look.
did you think of Fury of the Furies? I've not played that one.
Fury of the Furies is one of the greatest games that I've played on the Amiga.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you go into that a little bit? Expound?
It is a platformer that you play these little, they kind of look like the old Weebles toys, you know. You used to get them for like prizes and fundraisers where they had sticky feet. There's like adhesive on the bottom of the foot.
Sure.
And you put, you know, they look like that. It's basically your run-of-the-mill sort of platforming title, but each one of your furries has a different power. So part of the game is switching between them so you can accomplish certain tasks.
Sort of like Lost Vikings?
It's like that, except you don't have to worry about coordinating multiple furries because you only control one at a time. You magically morph from one to the other.
Oh, I see. So you don't have to pick which one you're going to be.
Right. Now, sometimes, well...
Dumb guy.
Well, you do have to pick which one you are, but you, like, for example, there's one that you have sort of the same mechanic as the ninja rope in Worms. You know, you're swinging. So, like, you might think, well, how am I going to get by this? And you actually do, it doesn't automatically switch you. And sometimes you have to go through a special kind of force field in order to enable that furry to be available. So it's a little bit deep, but it's definitely not as puzzly as Lost Vikings, which is out and out a puzzle game. This is more of a platformer. But, you know, mechanics don't make the game. What makes the game is the music, which is it's probably in my top 3 Amiga soundtracks of all time.
Really?
Yes. The music is excellent. Number 2, the controls are super, super tight. The furries do exactly what you want them to do. It's never frustrating. And 3, I don't really have a third thing, but it seems like you got to have 3 prongs to your attack. But 3, it's an awesome game. So I highly recommend you check out Fury of the Furries. It's difficult for me to say. I'd like to do it in a future episode, possibly.
Did you? Do you remember who made it?
Boy, I don't know.
Top of your head, I needed to research it. So
Was it Mindscape? Let's see if we can go back here real quick and
I gotta put you on the spot.
see what Callisto.
Have we done any of their stuff?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna check that out. Then.
Yeah. It's
The name, I was like, this sounds dumb.
it did sound dumb. I was going through my WHG load files
Yeah.
and I just randomly picked it, but it was awesome. Fantastic game.
Yeah. That sounds like something to check out, man.
All right, let's get to it. It is time to talk about Kid Chaos.
Kid Chaos. So this was a suggestion from, was it Ravi that suggested
Right,
this
Ravi Abbott.
one? So I had heard of this game but never played it. And had you ever had a look at it before this?
No, never
So,
once.
This was a game. This is kind of an interesting title in some ways. It was put out in '94. So again, you're looking at the beginning of the end right there for the Amiga, and it came out on 4 discs. There was also a CD version. It was developed by Magnetic Fields. Obviously, anyone that knows anything has heard of them. They were responsible for the Lotus series, the Supercar series, a game called Crystal Dragon, a game called Wrangler, and something called Super Scrambler Simulator, which I keep hearing about. I have to look into that one. It was coded. I mean, really, the guys at Magnetic Fields, you've got the 2 big dogs, Sean Southern and Andrew Morris. Andrew Morris did the graphics, and Sean did the coding. And, of course, they pretty much worked on all the Magnetic Field games. And then the same guy that did the music for Lotus, was involved in the music. Getting
Which is hard to believe, but I guess we'll get
Peter
into that
Liggett,
later.
and then another musician I noticed was simply known as Pipe Smoker's Cough. that's a great name.
It is a great name.
There is I looked at the ECS version of this, the ECS OCS. There's an AGA C32 version that I didn't look at.
I looked at some screenshots, and they appear to be identical.
I know there are some video updates, and I know the soundtrack's different on the CDs than it was on the disc version, which maybe that's a good thing. So this is a platformer. How to best to describe this very odd game? So I'm going to try to describe this without using the word Sonic the Hedgehog for the first 10 minutes of this part of the show. Kid Chaos is a game based around returning a kid to his original time. The kid, in the opening credits, the kid sort of looks like a bully jerk from that plays football. Like it's the classic
Stereotype
jerk.
bully, yeah.
He's got the big, thick eyebrows. He's got a flat top. He looks like Johnny Unitas, if American football player, military type haircut. He's got a club and tennis shoes and jeans, and he basically runs around this land and
destroys things,
and
wreaks havoc.
And the weird thing about this game that separates it from a lot of the games we've covered that were platformers is it's got the jump button. Actually, the button actually jumps, and that's your offense. Effectively, you would jump up in the air, and when you jump, he spins around and somersaults, and he can land on the bad guys or he can bash them with the club. And that's how you attack. Really, there's not much else to it. That you run around this land. This game is sort of known for having beautiful parallax scrolling, which it does. They do a tremendous job. I have read some of the developer stuff that said they used the same techniques similar to what were used in Lionheart to simulate the parallax scrolling. So we just talked about that. So the flavor text, the background of this guy, Kid Chaos is transported from the Stone Age into an unknown world by evil scientists.
Stone Age.
That's right. So he's got to find his way back to the Stone Age, and he has to go through several areas. This game's not super long, but there's a what's called a secret garden level, which is the one I've seen most of. I watched. In fact, I can't get off the secret garden, of course, but I did watch a bunch of videos to see what the hell the rest of the game is. There's a toxic wasteland. It's exactly like you think it is. A toy factory, a techno fortress, and the ruined city. Now, I watched the playthrough on this game. We'll get to this more later. And the ending of this game is real weird. And I don't mean the ending text or whatever. I mean the actual last couple things you do is strange to me. And we'll touch on that later on. So anyway, the kid runs through the level, and he hits stuff with clubs. The first level, your enemies are like bunnies, birds, bats, rats, birds that poop on you, which is tasteful as always. What is it with the bird poop thing? And of course, the poop, it sounds heavy. It sounds like they're dropping rocks. There are 5 levels. There are 4 sections in each of the levels. You have 3 lives, and you have a health meter. And when you hit obstacles, and the standard tropes, the standard usual suspects for damage are all here. You got, of course, we mentioned bats and rats, but you've got spikes. There's bumblebees. If you took most of the bad guys from like Super Frog and Zool, you could probably just smash them, and it's the same. It's basically the same stuff. You get through these levels by destroying flowers. As weird as that sound, there'll be big posies and daisies, or I don't know what. I'm no florist. You want to take a crack at what these flowers are?
I think that they're a cornucopia. That looks like a poppy.
I thought that too. And
I just think about the cannon fodder box.
That's cannon fodder. That's exactly what I was thinking. You spin around blowing up these flowers, and there's a gauge at the bottom that tells you how many things you have left to destroy before you can leave the level, which is very similar to Zool. In Zool, you had to collect a certain amount of stuff. This, you had to destroy a certain amount of stuff, and when you destroy it, you get to leave. At the end of every level of the game, every scenario, there's a boss battle type of affair. He has to get past. Again, that's pretty standard stuff, and that's pretty much it. It's got a password system for moving up to different levels, so you can save your game that way. And he progresses until you either die 3 times or you beat the game. That's all there is to it. So let's just start off by kind of going over the look of the game. So, Bo, what did you think about the presentation and the look of the game?
Well, I think that it's pretty uninspired. I think that the backgrounds, while they look cool, the backgrounds in Shadow of the Beast look cool too. These look like they came out of Shadow of the Beast. You got your sky that's sort of got a gradient. You've got some distant mountains, and then you've got a foreground. Now, I'll tell you, there is one extra layer that is almost sort of pseudo 3D, where you see, those trees, and it looks like it looks like the whole game is being played on some sort of a moving trolley where you're moving forward. It's a weird sort of thing to wrap your mind around. The palette of this game is, I don't know, the way that I view platforming games is that there needs to be sort of an element of cuteness to them, because the whole platforming genre is just patently ridiculous. The idea of making a realistic platformer is just dumb, because you're moving laterally from left to right or right to left and collecting things. So the colors don't really reflect any sort of whimsy. Everything is kind of a dark gray or green or brown. Kind of reminds me a lot of the color scheme for Chaos Engine.
It actually does.
Yeah,
think about it.
yeah.
You're right. At least the opening level.
Now your hero, the Kid Chaos himself, he's got a brightly colored jacket, red jacket and blue jeans and stuff, and the colors look fine on the kid. But maybe we should talk about how, as you put it, Kid Chaos is the most unlikable character in video game history.
Yes, I could talk all day about the actual characters. Kid Chaos, as we mentioned, is he looks like a football bully over here. It looks like he's got a leather jacket on, blue jeans. He's got a flat top. He's got big old bushy eyebrows. When you see him actually running around in the game, he just looks like kind of a doofus, So I mean, effectively, this is a caveman in an outfit. All right, that's the premise of the game. This is one unlikable caveman. He doesn't have any personality at all. We were talking about, it's funny, we just recently covered BC Kid, a.k.a. Bonk, which is a caveman who runs around and uses his head to hit stuff. Bonk has personality for days, and comparing these two, I mean, this guy's dull as dishwater. Just doesn't do anything interesting, doesn't do anything wacky. He just doesn't do much. I mean, it's not like he's well animated. There are plenty of times where you jump on. This thing has spring-loaded shooters that you'll hit, and you'll shoot you up in the air or shoot you up straight up or something. And on a couple of these, where he shoots up, he just literally doesn't change pose. He just sort of. Sometimes he'll extend like Superman, but there's a few where he just jumps up in the air and they just didn't animate it. Just nothing happens.
It's sort of like a Huckleberry Hound or whatever.
It is sort of like Huck Hound. When with the game, the critters are not that inspired. I mean, everything in this game is just sort of plain.
Like, for example, if you're watching YouTube, there's a bunny and there's it's kind of a bird of some kind, and they almost blend into the background because everything is so drab and washed out.
Plus, I mean, let's look at Zool, for example. The bad guys in that, like, there were bees in it, but they were kind of evil-looking bees. In a lot of games where you have critters, I mean, look at Donkey Kong Country is another good example. The bad guys in it are unique. They're funny. Sometimes they're lizards with hard hats, and sometimes they're bugs and with little expressions on their face. They're unique looking. These are just the bad guys in this are as plain Jane,
and
as,
they
as
also
Kid Chaos.
they're also very sort of indifferent to your presence. Like, they're not out to get you. They're just kind of hopping back and forth or flying around the screen. They're not actively trying to kill you. And again, this is that strange sort of premise that you have to destroy a certain number of objects, whether they be flowers or enemies or whatever, before you're allowed to leave the level.
I go back to the main character. Now, I will say, from doing some research, I came across an interview with Andrew Morris, and this game was originally called Kid Vicious. Okay, and so they could not use that game.
That name.
Yeah, they couldn't use that name, and part of at least according to Morris, was because there was a lot in the newspapers at the time about games being too violent. So that's one of the reasons they got rid of it.
Now, what I heard that might be wrong. Is that wrong, what I'm about to say?
Well, I heard that as well. I didn't read it, but I didn't read that, but I read it in some of the comments and some of the various boards. I'm not sure what the truth is. This is coming from one of the guys that worked on the game.
So this is what we're talking about, is that there's a rumor that the name was changed because the estate of Sid Vicious was unhappy with the similarity. Now, to me, that seems a little... Vicious is not exactly an uncommon name.
It's hard to believe he has an estate,
yeah,
given his life, but I don't know. Something else I found out, and this is again from the Andrew Morris interview, was that this character underwent changes, and for a good while in development, this was a cat, Cosmic Kitten, and that was also the original working title of the game, Cosmic Kitten. Also uninspired, frankly.
True.
Although Cosmic Kitten may have been the way to go. Frankly, this game suffers from an identity crisis. Is it cute? No. Okay, but is it serious? No. It's not like Contra, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't know what they're going for. I guess he's cuter than he is mean looking. But
just barely.
Right. So,
and it's not like he's like, because like Sonic, his whole thing was he had Tude, apostrophe
right.
Tude.
But this guy has no expression.
Yeah, he doesn't even have that. He's just kind of oafish looking.
Right, he is. He just looks like he almost looks like someone you would stick in as a filler character.
Right.
And, until you come up with something better. And I mean, a lot of B or C level mascot characters are better than this guy. Your acrobats and those guys like that. I mean, at least those guys had a lot more personality. So I will say the number one thing about this game that annoys me is the character is just lame. The next thing that bugs me is the level design. And now, so it's been about 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. This game is often referred to as the Amiga's answer to Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis. Now, I'm sure most of the listeners have heard of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was really Sega's flagship character and still is, I guess, and was definitely their flagship game on the Genesis and moved a crap load of Genesises back in the day, or Mega Drives. Me and Bo, when we did the run through of this, we played this and we actually loaded up Sonic and played it. This game, Kid Chaos, graphically is impressive, and the fact that it can run what it does tells me that you could have probably ported Sonic to this, and you could probably get away with it. Kid Chaos, one of the things that the game does get right is the speed of Kid Chaos. I mean, when you've got the right lane of to run through, he can go. He can go, and it looks smooth as silk, frame rate solid, everything good to go, just like Sonic. But where this game differs, another one of the places it differs is the level design. The levels in this are the lead, and I'm not just talking the ones I played, but having watched some of the other levels, they're just, and this is a problem that haunts the Amiga on these platforms. The level design is just not that good. When it comes to a character that is supposed to be fast and build up ahead of speed, there is just too much crap that gets in the way that before you could actually get to full speed, and it's irksome. Another thing that's irksome is the fact that the little springboards that were in Sonic have make an appearance in this, and when you hit one, they'll bounce you up in the air or left or right or diagonally in the air. These things in Sonic are a load of fun. You want to hop on them, take off, good times. In Kid Chaos, these are the most annoying things I've ever seen.
Right.
Because a lot of Kid Chaos is blind jumping, and when you take a blind jump somewhere, unless you've memorized the level. And even then, I'm thinking about, because a lot of times they'll position these things like directly past spikes, let's say, and you are more likely to hit them. And when you hit them, they bounce you back a third of the level, and it happens over and over. And these things are positioned horribly, and it just drove me nuts. And it was one of the reasons I had trouble getting past. I could get to like the last level of the first stage, or the last stage of the first level, but it was difficult, very difficult. It was frustrating to have to go over the same ground over and over. And often I would have had enough flowers built up, but I just couldn't get to the end because of these damn things. If you watch a game of Sonic or play it, they've got loops, they've got little tunnels, they've done everything they can to let you run amok and feel like you're getting somewhere at a breakneck speed.
Right.
And that's part of the fun. Kid Chaos doesn't allow you to do that.
One thing that I thought that was, another letdown. Music is such a big part of games for me, and especially platforming games. If a platformer like Fury the Furies, it had great music, and maybe the game isn't as great as I thought it was, but I can sit there and groove along with the music as I'm fighting through the levels. This Kid Chaos has probably some of the least inspired music. I mean, this sounds like the most generic sort of dance music, techno dance music that you can possibly imagine. It doesn't fit with the theme of the game at all. It has nothing to do with a caveman. It has nothing to do with this sort of pastoral environment that you're trouncing around. And again, when you compare it with Sonic, Sonic definitely is not a perfect game, but it's got some great music.
It does. I mean, the music is standard techno. I mean, I like house music as much as anybody, but again, I'm not saying the music's horrible.
It sounds like the Mortal Kombat song.
Well, it's
if you can picture that.
And again, if you go through the levels, some levels are better than others, but I mean, it's not great.
Right.
And again, you're right. Now that much said, the CD version could have better sound. I didn't play it. I don't know how it goes, but the Amiga music should never be a problem. There should never be a problem with having good music. And this one just, especially if the same guys that worked on the music from Lotus worked on it, it's surprising because the music in Lotus is really good.
Right.
But again, it is what it is. Now, we talked about this earlier, and we should probably touch on it again. It's not fair to compare a game like Kid Chaos to Sonic. Sonic is done by an experienced team from Japan that with a lot of the backing of one of the world's largest video game manufacturers, and a horde of people working on it. And Kid Chaos is worked on by a very, very small company.
Basically, two guys.
Yeah, with limited resources and working under different dynamic, under different restraints. So we're not saying, hey, this isn't as good as Sonic, so it's crap. And I will say this: despite all we've said about Kid Chaos, I did find it entertaining. It's a game I enjoyed playing to a certain degree. I mean, it was just the frustrating things about it really frustrated me. But I could see a really good game in there that I don't think they pulled all the way out. I mean, for example, and this is just nitpicking at this point, but there's plenty of areas where Kid Chaos will go underwater, for example. No swimming, no floating mechanic. There's a little play on the gravity, but it's just him walking on the bottom like nothing's going on. There's no breath bubbles. I mean, these are tiny little things, but they mean something, man. You've got to, I know the game gets very, very hard very quickly after you leave that first stage, or the first level. And I watched the end of the game, and the little bonus stages are kind of weird. The end of the game is almost like a Space Invaders ripoff. There's an Arkanoid ripoff in there is one of the things. I wonder if the game was, if the game was fully realized or was rushed out. Or was just kind of, they said, okay, here we go, let's finish it up and get it out now. I don't know if they were under a rush for a Christmas thing, but it just seems to me like it's not a fully fleshed out game.
Yeah, any game that comes out, in 94, 95, I'm just wondering if they're trying to rush it out before everybody stops buying Amigas.
Well, I don't know. It's possible. But for certain that the Amiga pushed out the graphics that you need to have a good game, but they were just let down by the, and I mean, gosh, how many times have we said this? And not to beat a dead horse, but level design. Even if you could have had a great character in this, you could have had great music in this, you could have had great detail in this, but that level design, man, it's a killer. There's not as many collectibles in this. There is like Super Frog or Zool, which is a good thing. And it's pretty. One thing I did enjoy about it is it's pretty straightforward. Before every mission, it gives you what your parameters are for what you're doing, which are pretty much basically pretty similar. It tells you where you're at. It gives you a time that you have to beat. You can pick up additional time, as a pickup. There's checkpoints. There's different. You can pick up extra men. It's standard stuff. And like I said, there's a core there. There's the game there that can be enjoyed, but you've got to look past a lot of things to enjoy it.
Right.
And I think this is one where I'd probably turn the music down, sort of ignore them. It's hard to get past that main guy. I mean, for me, he just looks. I hate the way he looks. But if you can get past it, there's a game there that can be enjoyed. This game, I looked it up on eBay to see what kind of action it was getting, just for fun. And you're looking at there weren't a lot of issues out there. There are a lot of boxes out there. I found one in the UK, $70 shipped, and one in Austria of all places for $85 shipped. The truth of the matter is, I don't know if this had an American release. To be honest with you, I couldn't find any indication that it did. It's funny, a lot of these games it's hard for us to tell, and I played the PAL version, which I will say is something else to the on Amiga Forever. The good thing about it is you don't have to worry about not seeing the bottom part of the screen,
right?
which is nice, and it does a real good job on that. Any parting thoughts on it, Boat?
No, I think I've said everything I really think about the game. It was released clearly as a competitor to Sonic. If they would have made the character a little bit more likable, maybe freshened up the palette and put music in there that fit the kind of game they were going for, this could have been a serious contender because controls are not an issue. I mean, the game controls
does control well. Yeah, and I will say we talked about this earlier. I never felt like I was getting ripped off or cheated by the way the controls worked.
Yeah.
They felt solid. I actually played this on both with the joystick and a keyboard, and it played pretty well. It did okay with the keyboard. So it's no problem there. And I will say one of the advantages of having one button that jumps and then no attack is that it's not hampered by the Amiga's limited joystick. Now I would wonder how this plays with the gamepad. If you could swing the clubs.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Sonic is a one button game too.
Yeah, that's true. Review wise, this reviewed okay. All right. Amiga Computing gave it a 77. Amiga Format gave it a 79. Amiga Power gave it a 71. Do you see a trend here? And then you've got the One and CU Amiga gave it 87%. I think 87 is a little high. I think I would put this somewhere firmly in the 70s. I don't think it's a failure by any stretch of the imagination. It's more It's funny that after all the killing of it we've done, I find it more playable than Super Frog and a few of the other games we've tried, just because the controls are tight.
Yeah.
I find it more playable as a player, but I don't find it as fun.
Right.
Say what you will about Super Frog and all the pickups and the kind of the loosey-goosey controls, but the music's fun. It's colorful. The character's fun.
I'm with you.
It's got a sense of humor, and that goes a long way. So it just comes down to, do you want to play something that controls well but is not necessarily fun to look at, or do you want to play something that looks great but doesn't control someone? Maybe just play Addams Family, not worry about it. But overall, I'm not going to give it a thumbs down or anything. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. What's going for on eBay now?
I told you already.
You told me already?
Yes.
We normally do that last.
Yeah.
So.
It was $70 or best offer in the UK and $85 in Austria.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and thank let's thank a couple people. Let's thank the people that are hanging out in live chat with us on YouTube Gaming. Pishbot, Jason, Henrik. Will was here for a while. He's gone. Thank you everybody that has joined us. Dylan and Paul and all you guys. And also, we need to thank all of the fine Patreon supporters that make Amigos possible. And since we are going to be doing this, and let's put those credits out in front of us. There we go. since we're talking Sonic, I thought that I would sing my own rendition of the Sonic theme song with the names of the Patreon supporters.
Let me get ready for this. Okay, go ahead.
Duncan Styles, THT, Anthony Jarvis, Dreamcatcher, Adam Battersby, John Marshall, Darren Coles, Neil Mansell, Brutal Barracuda, Alan Kabab, David McCrandles, Gary Hucker, Will Williams, Ravi Abbott, Kim Tommy Humboldt-Stad, Justin, Jason Woods, Lane, and then we go to the boss battle. Eric Nelson, Graham Vebke, Paul Harrington, Rob O'Hara, Lauren Giroux, Jonas Rulo, Kilburn Barman, Tapes from the Crypt, Adam Bradley, Chris Folds, Daniel Bingston, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Chad Halstead, and Brent Dowdy. That was the Brent Dowdy, Chad Halstead. There we go.
I was with you until you about halfway. I thought you were doing a good job, and then you lost.
I call that a win.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
So, guys, thank you all for listening. Next week, Aaron, we're going to take a look at another Konami game. We're going to take a look at Super C.
Okay.
Well known on the consoles, sort of well known in the arcade, not so well known on the Amiga.
I stink at that game on the consoles, but I've not played the Amiga, so we'll give it a go.
And one more thing before we go. If you are a fan of role-playing, you might want to check out our YouTube channel. We're piloting a new series of Amigos role-playing adventures.
We're piloting a new series of this, are we?
Yeah. So Aaron is a master, dungeon master, game master, and he weaves tales that you can only dream of.
I'll read them out of a book.
And so we got together a couple days ago and ran through an adventure. And if you like it, then leave us a comment, and we'll try and do some more of them. So until next week, Aaron, we'll see y'all later.
Adios.